I'm your host, Bradford Lassiter, and welcome to another episode of the Lassiter Factor Monthly Report, the show I break down everything that happened in the world of movies and TV. And in this case, I'll break it down everything that happened in January 2021. Yep, it is definitely a new year, so hopefully things are a lot better this year than last year's. And I have a lot to get through in this episode, so what do you say we get into it? Now, before I get started, I gotta mention the passing of an actress who is not just a legend in Hollywood, but a legend in Black Hollywood, and that is Cicely Tyson, who passed away on January 28th, 2021 at the age of 96. Now, admittedly, I'm not too familiar with all her work. In fact, I'll say she didn't necessarily have the biggest influence on my generation, but she still had an influence that influenced my generation. But if you take a look at her filmography, you'll see that her work spawns decades upon decades upon decades. In fact, the earliest thing that I remember watching her in, well, at least the earliest thing that she was in that I saw her in, was she played Kunta Kinte's mother in Roots. And from there, she has an extensive TV background, including a recurring role on the show How to Get Away with Murder. She's been in many films such as Sounder, The Help, Hoodlum, Because of Winn-Dixie. But it wasn't until the mid-2000s when she met Tyler Perry, and Tyler Perry kind of gave her somewhat of a career renaissance after putting her in movies such as Diary of a Mad Black Woman, which is the first thing I actually saw her in, and then from there she was in Medea's Family Reunion. She had a cameo in Why Did I Get Married 2. She even played his mother in the reboot of Alex Cross. And she is definitely one of those actresses that left her mark. Cicely Tyson, rest in paradise, queen. Your influence and legacy will definitely live on and will surely be missed. And now let's get into some movie news that I will briefly touch upon. Like the first bit of news, that is Disney and Marvel, they announced that Deadpool is still going to be around and it's going to maintain its R rating, and somehow, some way, it's going to be in the MCU, which, well, one, I'm excited that Deadpool will keep its R rating, because a lot of people have said, man, Disney's going to ruin Deadpool. Like, let's pump the brakes. I think even Disney can realize that Fox had a good thing going with Deadpool, so I don't think Disney will do anything to try to diminish that. But as far as how they're going to integrate him into the MCU, I'm very curious to see that, but I can't wait to see. And as long as Ryan Reynolds is in the role, I'm cool with that. Aside from that, well, 2021 is starting out by moving some movies around again. But mostly coming from Sony, because Sony, they just moved up the entire slate. Like, for example, one of the movies that I was anticipating to come out this year, but it's now getting pushed back to January of 2022, and that is Morbius. Now, at first I heard that it was going to get pushed back to 2022, which I'm like, a whole other year? And when are we ever going to get this film? But then I heard it's going to come out in January 2022, and I was like, okay, well, it's far away, but it's not too far away. It's at the beginning of the year, so. But I was excited for that movie, mainly because I saw the trailer, and clearly it has something to do with the Spider-Verse or whatever, or how there's going to be different multiverses, and I'm curious to see how that's going to play into Venom, Let There Be Carnage, and can't wait to see how Jared Leto does as Morbius. James Bond got pushed back to October of this year. It was supposed to come out in April, but now it's getting pushed back again, which is the 50-11th time that movie got pushed back. First, it was supposed to come out in April of last year, then pushed to November of last year, and now getting pushed, and then get pushed to April of this year, and now back to October of this year. So it's like, damn, Jimmy Bond just can't catch a break. But hey, look at the bright side. At least this gives me plenty of time to marathon all the James Bond movies aside of Daniel Craig that I have not seen yet, which I have started. A couple of other movies that got pushed back is Ghostbusters Afterlife, Uncharted, and Peter Rabbit 2, which are movies that I either don't really care about or just curious to see how this is going to play out. Mainly Ghostbusters. I'm curious as to how that's going to play out, especially after that last film. But it seems like Sony, they just don't know what to do with their movies. And they're just scared. And then lastly, of these movies getting pushed back is A Quiet Place Part 2, which is a movie that was like literally getting ready to come out, but then everything got shut down. It was supposed to come out in March of last year, but then got pushed to September, and then got pushed to April of this year, and now it's getting pushed back to September of this year. Another movie that just can't catch a break. I'm like, this is definitely one of those movies that I was actually excited to see, but it's like every time we get closer to it, something pushes it back, and I'm just like, I'm ready to see this already. But hopefully this time, this will be the last time that A Quiet Place Part 2 gets pushed back, because I'm really curious to see that movie. And I definitely feel sorry for John Krasinski, because this movie really was getting ready to come out, but then boom, not sorry, gotta get pushed back. So sorry, gotta get pushed back. So, and now for my next segment, I will give you my top 20 most anticipated films of 2021. Now, obviously, there's a couple of holdovers from 2020 because they either got pushed back or moved to 2021. So, yeah. And plus, it ain't no guarantee that all these movies are gonna come out in 2021. But hey, I thought it'd still be fun to at least, these are the movies that I'm looking forward to, and fingers crossed, hopefully they come out this year. So let's do this. At number 20 is Cruella, which is another live-action adaptation of the classic Disney film 101 Dalmatians, and we had already have two live-action 101 Dalmatians, 101 Dalmatian and 102 Dalmatians, which, for nostalgic reasons, I do like those films, and Glenn Close, she is phenomenal as Cruella de Vil in those roles. But now in this new live-action remake, we have Emma Stone playing Cruella, and for this film they're doing the same thing what they did with Maleficent, which is tell the story from the villain's perspective, and maybe she wasn't always evil. Maybe she was good in the beginning, but then something happened and now she's all evil and bitter or whatever. But let's just see. But I'm just happy that we get another crack at this world of 101 Dalmatians. So, and plus 101 Dalmatians, it was, as far as the classic Disney films go, it was always one of my favorites, and I'm happy that it's gonna get that. There's a possibility that it's gonna get put on Disney Plus. So hopefully so I don't have to go to the theaters to see that, because I'm trying to limit the times I go to the theater this year, because we're still in a pandemic. So yeah. Next up is Venom, Let There Be Carnage, which is the sequel to the 2018 film Venom. And this film was supposed to come out next year, but it wasn't ready in time because of COVID, and so they pushed it to this year. Now, I'm not too big on the first film, but I do enjoy Venom's screen time, and I like Tom Hardy in the role as Eddie Brock and his relationship with Venom, that symbiotic relationship with Venom. But of course, the big draw here as to why I'm curious about this film is because of Carnage. And Carnage, he's a fan favorite. He's not particularly my favorite, but he is something that I wanted to see on the screen for a long time, especially with Venom. And Woody Harrelson, he's going to be playing Carnage as teased doing the post-credit scene of Venom. You remember? When I get out, it's going to be carnage. And the other big draw here as to why I'm interested in Venom Let There Be Carnage is because of Morbius and what that movie's trailer teased in that film, which is there's going to be different multiverses or a possibility of taking place in the Tom Holland universe of Spider-Man, but who knows? And whether or not this will make it to the theaters or not, I don't know, but given the fact that Sony just announced that Barbie and Star is going to go straight to streaming, I actually wouldn't mind staying home to watch this. Next up is Spyro, which takes place in the Saw universe, which I'll admit I haven't seen any of the Saw films. I don't know, for some reason I had missed that wave, or at the time I just wasn't too big on torture horror. Well, I'm still not, but since this is coming out and Chris Rock is in it, not only he's starring, but he made it as well. And what I like seeing is a lot of black actors or black talent making these horror films, which has been happening a lot lately, and so that alone has me curious. So now I got to go back and watch all the other Saw movies leading up to Spyro. And this was another one of those movies that was getting ready to come out, but then COVID hit, and now that movie got pushed back indefinitely, and they finally announced that this movie is going to get released this year. So hopefully you get to see that. Next up is Dune, which is directed by Denis Villeneuve, and it's starring a lot of talent in this film, which is Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya, Jason Momoa. Now, I have not seen the original Dune, but I've heard a lot about that movie, and I've heard that it's based on a book that is just unfilmable because it's just a lot to digest, and it's a really cerebral film. But after watching the trailer, when it was put in front of Tenet in the theater, I was one of the first people to saw it, but I was like, okay, now I'm kind of curious. And it was supposed to get released in December of last year, but then they pushed it back again a whole year. And so, but it's movies like this that I get curious to go back and watch the original film, especially now since it's on HBO Max. So now I have a way to go watch the original film, and of course now see how that does. So. But yeah, I don't have that much to say about Dune other than I'm just curious to see it. Next is Halloween Kills. Now, here a brief history of me and the Halloween franchises. The Halloween franchise is a franchise that I was a little late to the party until I saw the 2018 reboot, whatever you want to call it. But I went back and watched. Well, I didn't watch all of them. In fact, the only Halloween movies I did not see was the first Halloween 2 up until Halloween 6, because I heard like that particular era is just not that good. So I just watched the original Halloween H2O, Halloween Resurrection, the two Rob Zombie films, and of course the Halloween reboot that came out in 2008. So I watched that and I'm like, okay, you know what? I can understand why people love the Halloween franchise and Michael Myers. And so with Halloween Kills coming out, now I'm really excited to see that. That was another film that was supposed to come back in October of last year, but then they pushed it back a whole year. And so I can't wait to see what happens next in this particular era of the Halloween franchise. Next up is Mission Impossible 7. Now, again, a brief history with me and the Mission Impossible franchise. Back in 2018, I had only been a couple of Mission Impossible franchises, but I bought the box set, and now I'm a fan of this franchise, and probably one of my favorite spy franchises. The first film was classic in its own right. The second one, weakest. The third one is actually my favorite. The fourth one, I actually remember, that was the first one I saw, and saw that in the theater. Then Rogue Nation I saw, and then Fallout I saw in the theater. Third favorite, and now with Mission Impossible 7 coming out, and after hearing Tom Cruise's freak out on set because nobody on set was following COVID guidelines.
So I'm sorry, I'm beyond your apologies. I have told you, and now I want it. And if you don't do it, you're out. We are not shutting this movie down. I don't ever want to see it again. Ever. And if you don't do it, you're fired. And I see you do it again, you're gone. Anyone on this crew does it. That's it. And you too, and you too, and you. Don't you ever do it again. Is it understood? If I see it again, you're gone. That's it. No apologies. You can tell it to the people that are losing their homes because our industry is shut down. It's not going to put food on their table or pay for their college education.
I am more than happy to see this and can't wait to see what crazy stunts Tom Cruise does in this film. Godzilla vs. Kong. Of course, I'm a fan of giant monsters. Well, I'm not too big on giant monsters, but I'm a fan of Godzilla and King Kong. I've been following the MonsterVerse movies from Godzilla 2014, Kong Skull Island, Godzilla, Kings of Monsters, whatever that was called. Either way, that was the weakest of those films, but of course the King Kong movie from Peter Jackson and Godzilla 98. So I'm very excited to see these two giant titans fight. And of course we saw that trailer and whoa! I will be there in the theater. And yes, I know this is going to HBO Max, but this is something I feel you gotta see this on the theater. And The Heights, which is another movie that was supposed to come out last year, but then pushed back, but now it's also been doing a day-and-date release with HBO Max and the theater. But of course, I know next to nothing about In the Heights other than that it's a musical, and it was by Lin-Manuel Miranda, who made Hamilton. And after catching Hamilton fever, I want to digest some more from Lin-Manuel Miranda. And they say that this was the first Broadway play that Lin-Manuel Miranda made, so I can't wait to pretty much catch In the Heights fever. Next is Judah and the Black Messiah, which stars Daniel Kaluuya and Lakeith Stanfield. But it's pretty much reverse Black Klansman, in which somebody in the FBI infiltrates the Black Panther Party. That alone has me sold, and can't wait to see what kind of tension that builds up in his relationships and how morally confused he is in that film. In fact, that film comes out in, I believe, a couple of weeks at the time when I'm shooting this film, so I can't wait to see that. Then, Fast and Furious 9, or F9, whatever you want to call it, another film that was supposed to come out last year, but then got pushed back a whole year. But of course, I'm a huge fan of the Fast and Furious franchise, and in case you've been following my Instagram, and I think I mentioned this in my reviews, I started my Fast and Furious marathon, and hopefully this movie makes it to the theaters in May. Or it doesn't get pushed back, I don't know. But all I know is I'm very excited for this film, and yeah, this franchise has gone absurd over the years, but hey, that's the beauty of it. And hey, justice for Han, and I can't wait to see whatever physics-defying shit they come up with in this film. Rounding up my top 10 is The Matrix 4. Now, right now, that's supposed to come out in the latter half of the year. We know next to nothing about it other than Keanu's coming back, Carrie-Anne Moss is coming back as Trinity, Neil Patrick Harris and Jonathan Groff are the villains of this film, and one of the Wachowskis is back directing. Of course, I'm a huge fan of the first Matrix. The second one was entertaining, at best. The third one was... But before I get excited, I'm just curious as to what they're trying to accomplish with The Matrix 4. At number 9 is Coming to America, which is going to get which is coming to Amazon Prime. Of course, I'm a huge fan of the first film, Coming to America, which came out in 1988, or is it 89? I don't know. But of course, I'm a huge fan of Eddie Murphy and that entire cast. But I did see the trailer, and I'll admit, I do have some concerns. I just hope that this is a legit sequel and not just Coming to America's greatest hits. But I will be there opening day and can't wait to watch this movie from the comfort of my own home. Space Jam 2 is a movie that has been teased for years, but it's finally coming, and we got that still image from one of the videos that HBO Max released. But I'm definitely staying home for this. But of course, I'm a huge fan of the original Space Jam. As a matter of fact, I have the original Space Jam and the Space Jam soundtrack on cassette. That should tell you how much of a Space Jam fan I am. And of course, they get LeBron James back, so good. They find someone as of, I guess, current to be in this film, and the Looney Tunes always get a kicks out of me. So yeah. The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It, is the third film within the Conjuring franchise. Now, all its spin-off films like Annabelle, The Nun, or whatever, I'm not too big on that, but I do like the core Conjuring films, which are about the Warrens. I'm a fan of the first two films, and this film was supposed to come out last year, but I guess it wasn't ready in time because of COVID, and so they pushed it to this year. I remember seeing that poster, and I'm like, yes, I am ready. Scare the shit out of me in the theater for this one. I just can't wait to see the next installment within the Conjuring franchise. And then, next up, sticking with the theme of horror films, and as I was talking about before, A Quiet Place Part 2. I've already mentioned it before. This film was getting ready to come out, but then COVID came and then got pushed back multiple times, and now it's coming out in September of this year, so hopefully we do get that. Next is Respect, which is the Aretha Franklin biopic that stars Jennifer Hudson in the title role. I love Jennifer Hudson, especially in Dreamgirls, and we get to see her in, I guess, this type of role again. She is an Academy Award-winning actress for a reason, and I can't wait to watch her sing her ass off while at the same time learning some things about Aretha Franklin. And then lastly, of the horror movies that I'm excited for, and frankly the one I'm most excited for, is Candyman. Now, my history with this is I remember watching the trailer for this movie last year and then went back and saw the original. I absolutely love the original, and now I can't wait for this one, especially since Tony Todd is coming back in the title role. This is definitely an event, especially for black folks. At number 3 is The Suicide Squad. Now, of course, with all the information we find out about this film at DC Fandom, I am more than excited, especially since James Gunn is taking over as director. It's kind of a soft reboot, but with a lot more obscure characters, and of course, a couple of returning characters like Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, Jai Courtney is returning as Captain Boomerang, Viola Davis is returning as Amanda Waller. But I'm excited for this one because I think it's going to center more so on the suicide aspect of it, because you got a couple of obscure characters. Those got to be the red shirt characters that's just going to get killed off like this. But I'm more than looking forward to this film and to see DC and Warner Brothers take a different take on this particular brand of DC characters. At number 2 is Zack Snyder's Justice League. Yeah, we have gone through a lot to get to this film because... yeah, we have the Justice League, which is what everybody's calling it, but Justice League, which is just not good. And then fans fought hard with the hashtag release the Snyder Cut, and now we're finally getting Zack Snyder gets to complete his vision, which is what I'm excited about. And hopefully with this 4-hour cut of the film, which is pretty much going to be a mini-series separated into 4 episodes. But I'm just excited because hopefully this movie will give more context as to what Zack Snyder was trying to do with his version of the DC Extended Universe. With Batman vs. Superman, Man of Steel, and it's just announced that we get it sooner than later. We got these posters, a trailer is coming out on Valentine's Day, and it's going to get released on HBO Max in March. So, yes. And then finally, for my number one, I'm going to cheat a little bit. But hey, sue me. But at number one is pretty much the entire 2021 slate of Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is Black Widow, which comes out in May, Shang-Chi, which comes out in July, or was it June? I don't know. And then Eternals, which comes out in November, and Spider-Man 3, which comes out in December. Of course, Black Widow was supposed to come out last year, but then got pushed back to this year, and hopefully this makes its release date. Shang-Chi and Eternals, we haven't seen anything from it, but of course, anything Marvel, I am there for. And especially after watching WandaVision, I am more than excited for Marvel Phase 4, so there we go on that. Then Spider-Man 3, with all those announcements, I had mentioned this in one of my previous episodes, between all previous Spider-Mans coming back, Doc Ock coming back, Jamie Foxx returning as Electro. It's just, this movie's about to be bananas, and I am there for it. Though I will say my only concern about Spider-Man 3 is I was hoping to get a more traditional Spider-Man story about Tom Holland's Spider-Man. And let him, because, you know, the past two movies, he's either been around the world or he's had assistance from other characters from this universe, and I just want to see a traditional Spider-Man movie where Tom Holland's Spider-Man can stand on his own, let him prove himself. But hey, the moment I see Tobey Maguire returning in Spider-Man 3, I am going to weep. But that's it for this episode of the Lassiter Factor Monthly Report. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Let me know what you think of this episode. I'm your host, Bradford Lassiter. Be safe. Wash your hands. Peace.